Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this really important event. I'm Mike Carroll, the PennDOT Secretary, and I'm pleased to be joined by my colleagues to call attention to Work Zone Safety as we kick off National Work Zone Awareness Week, which begins today. As you can predict, we're at the beginning of a construction season, not just here in Pennsylvania, but across the nation. This means improved roads and bridges, but it also means danger for PennDOT workers and our contractors. Last year, there were 153 intrusions, vehicles into our work zones, that PennDOT and our contractors had to deal with. Of those intrusions, 14 resulted in injuries to PennDOT employees. We need to prevent that from happening. And since 1970, sadly, PennDOT has lost 90 workers in the line of duty. Work zones can also present unique challenges for motorists. Work zones often include lane closures and narrow or shifting lanes. Motorists traveling through a work zone must always be paying attention because travel patterns may change on a daily or weekly basis. According to PennDOT data, there were 1,200 crashes in Pennsylvania work zones last year. Those crashes, sadly, took the lives of 22 people, and most of those were motorists. We want that number to be zero. PennDOT's most important priority for the traveling public and for our contractors and employees is safety. We take at PennDOT many precautions and the Turnpike to keep work zones safe for everyone, including proper training for our workers, enhanced signing for motorists, and equipment like crash trucks, barriers, and rumble strips. We have a crash truck on Commonwealth Ave today. Work zone speed cameras are also used to help make work zones safer for both workers and motorists by reducing work zone speeds and changing driver behavior. As part of that program, cameras take photos of license plates of any vehicle exceeding the speed limit in a work zone by 11 miles per hour when workers are present. And my thanks to the members of the House and Senate for their foresight in extending the work zone camera program, and of course to Governor Shapiro for signing that legislation into law. Pennsylvania drivers will see plenty of work zones this year because of the magnitude of our construction projects. Thanks to increased federal spending and action in Governor Shapiro's budget last year that secured a decoupling of an additional $125 million, Pennsylvania's road and bridges will see 1,800 construction projects underway during 2024. That means improvements, but it also means drivers need to pay attention to the moms, dads, sons, and daughters who are working in these construction projects. Work zones may be a temporary inconvenience, but the actions that drivers take can have lifelong effects. Please make the safe choice. I know everyone's in a hurry. I know everyone wants to get where they're going quickly, but please slow down in work zones. So often we have nothing but orange cones protecting drivers from workers. We do need the traveling public to pay attention to work zones and slow down. And of course, we encourage everyone to buckle up every trip. It's the single most important step that can be taken to ensure safety of the folks in the vehicle. Working together, we can all do our part to prevent crashes and fatalities in work zones. I implore the members of the traveling public, when they see the traffic control devices warning of a construction zone, they see the presence of orange cones, please slow down. It's in the interest of everyone to keep everybody safe. Our workers, Turnpike workers, contractors, and the motoring public. I'm happy now to turn the podium over to my friend and colleague from Turnpike, CEO Craig Shuey. Craig.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. I want to echo a lot of what the Secretary said with regard to how important it is to maintain focus in our work zones. That is what this is all about, is to try to ensure that we are getting a safe environment for our workers to work and for you and your family to drive through. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. And right now around you are the visuals of the types of equipment and things that work in our work zones. These are what our team members are using each day to perform their work. There's a crushed attenuator over to my left, which shows you exactly what these folks are up against. If you look at what that attenuator did, it collapsed. It did its job. It protected the people who were working in front of it. But if it hadn't been there, if it had been some humans that were working there, I can only imagine the type of tragedy that would have involved for all of the family members who know and love that worker, for all of their coworkers who stand day by day with them, for their supervisors whose job it is to protect them, and for the motorist who for a moment thought that whatever they were doing, wherever they were going, was more important than simply paying attention to what was happening, following the rules that are set up to provide safety in those work zones, and simply acted as human as we would hope they could. All of us who work in suits and ties, who do jobs that don't require us to be out on the front lines and engaging in dangerous work, need to step back from time to time and think about what is happening in those work zones. When we see those humans lined up doing a job that we don't understand, and we get split seconds to look at it and split seconds to make decisions about how to proceed, we become numb to what's happening there. But imagine legislators, lawyers, engineers, doctors, others, if you were sitting in your office and an 80,000-pound vehicle suddenly intruded into what you were doing at a high rate of speed, how could you possibly think you were going to do that job day in and day out and do it successfully? And that's what our folks are dealing with every time they're out on that roadway. They're providing a service to you that helps you, when it's done, that helps you travel better, that improves your experience, improves the roadway, maintains the infrastructure that you depend on. And all we're asking is that in those spaces, you pay attention to what's going on, you stop having side conversations, you understand that the changing dynamic that's in front of you can result in things that you weren't expecting. We all know, no one expects to stop on an interstate highway, but it happens. And when it happens quickly, those split seconds that you have to respond to those incidents will change lives if you're not aware of what's happening around you. So I ask and implore that you give space, that you give attention, and that you give respect to the people that are working in those work zones, whether they're Pennsylvania Turnpike employees, PennDOT employees, Pennsylvania State Troopers doing their jobs, contracted employees, all of the folks that are there to make sure that you have a safe and good driving experience and that your mobility is as best as it can be. That you give those folks a brief few moments of respect to ensure that they can go home as they need to each day. And with that, I'll turn it over to Colonel Paris of the Pennsylvania State Police, and I thank you for your attention today.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be joined today by our public safety partners for National Work Zone Awareness Week. I appreciate the work of these agencies as we collectively strive to improve safety on Commonwealth highways. When it comes to work zones, Pennsylvania State Police troopers routinely assist construction crews by slowing down approaching vehicles and enforcing traffic laws. PSP troopers and construction crews have one goal in mind: to get the job done safely and get home to their families at the end of their shifts. In order to accomplish that goal, drivers are requested to follow the rules of the road, stay focused, and slow down. PSP and our law enforcement partners stand ready to enforce the appropriate laws. Dangerous driving in work zones too often has deadly results. The worker memorials here today stand as proof. Pennsylvanians have the right to feel and be safe, whether in their homes, at work, or on our highways. When PSP investigates work zone crashes, troopers find that nearly all were preventable. The most common factors contributing to work zone crashes are driving too fast for conditions, careless passing and lane changes, tailgating, and distracted driving. In 2023, troopers investigated nearly 1,700 crashes in work zones. Of those, 11 involved a fatality, and over 300 involved some type of injury. Remember that fines double for many traffic violations occurring in active work zones. Speeding, illegal passing, following too closely, failing to obey a stop sign or yield sign, reckless driving, and operating a vehicle under the influence of alcohol or controlled substances, just to name a few. I also would like to remind everyone of Pennsylvania's move over law. When approaching or passing an emergency response area, you must safely move over to a lane not adjacent to the one with emergency vehicles, thus creating a one-lane buffer zone between you and first responders. If you are unable to safely move over, the law requires you to slow down at least 20 miles per hour under the posted speed limit. Emergency response areas are where police, fire, or EMS vehicles have emergency lights flashing, such as traffic stops and crash scenes, or have posted signs or lit flares as warning devices to travelers. Move over also applies to tow trucks providing roadside assistance and any and all disabled vehicles with at least 2 emergency displays present. So please, the next time you're traveling through a work zone, limit distractions and slow down. These actions could save your life or the life of another. Thank you, and I'd now like to introduce Bob Latham, Associated Pennsylvania Constructors Executive Vice President.
Thank you, Colonel. It's a pleasure to be here. We really appreciate the opportunity to participate in this event today, heralding the start of Work Zone Safety Week here in Pennsylvania and throughout the nation. APC represents the private contractors who do work on PennDOT, Turnpike, and local roads. We have about 30,000 workers throughout the state of Pennsylvania. We provide good paying jobs to individuals working on highways, many opportunities for minorities and females to work in our construction environment, and they all deserve a safe working environment, and that's what the folks who just spoke before me talked about, how we're going to do that. But I want to recognize also the folks from Flagger Force, a local company here that provide highway work zone safety programs for our contractors. They're here representing the industry. But more importantly, you heard about a number of laws that have been passed, hopefully that will save lives, slow people down, save workers' lives as well as motorists' lives. And the people that I want to recognize today are behind me, the leaders from the General Assembly who passed those laws, and we appreciate sometimes those votes are not easy to take. But they provided the leadership, and they provided what we hope will be a safe environment for motorists as well as highway workers. So I want to thank everybody for being here today and urge folks to slow down in highway work zones. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob, and thanks all of you. Before we end today, I'd like to take a moment of silence to remember the Turnpike, PennDOT, and contractors who lost their lives. The memorials here representing some of those folks highlight the deadly outcomes that can occur. So if you wouldn't mind a moment of silence. Thank you all so much. Thank you for calling attention, for all of us, for joining us and calling attention to this important subject. Please slow down in the work zones. Thank you. We'll be happy to field some questions from the media if somebody wants a question behind the podium, or we can do it individually if that's the preference. Okay. Thank you all. into our work zones that PennDOT and our contractors had to deal with. Of those intrusions, 14 resulted in injuries to PennDOT employees. Turnpike CEO Craig Huey. Craig.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. I want to echo a lot of what the Secretary said with regard to how important it is to maintain focus in our work zones. That is what this is all about, is to try to ensure that we are getting